Hello, and welcome to episode 112 of The Joy of Coding. My name's Mike Conley. Going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today, as per usual. This is another one of those episodes where I haven't really, as per usual, haven't done a whole lot of upfront planning on what's going to happen. So, brace yourselves. We're flying by the seat of our pants. So let me share my screen with you. There we go. So today is November 29th, 2017. Reminder, no plan survives breakfast. Even though I just told you I don't have much of a plan, I was able to throw down some things I might want to do today. And working on those, who knows what'll happen. I might go horribly wrong. It might not work. I might get distracted. Who knows? We're catching software development in the raw here. So, it's possible that all of this will go horribly wrong. I want to talk about the episode guide really quickly. If this is your first time watching this show, maybe you're interested in having an episode guide to know about what happened in earlier shows. So this is a community-run episode guide. It's completely volunteer-driven. I've barely written any part of this, but other viewers just like you, have written episode guides for most episodes. I think up until maybe just the one before last week doesn't have a guide, and there's some missing episodes, but for the most part, and a lot of them just have like the link to the video and the link to the agenda, but some of them also have like a list of topics of things that I talked about. So you might find that interesting, and feel free to send pull requests to the repository. If you yourself have some ideas for notes or things that could go along with the episode for the guide, do send them my way. If you're not sure how to send a pull request, or you're not sure what a pull request is, there's a guide in the agenda on how to create pull requests. And on that note, this agenda is available to you. If you are watching this on Air Mozilla, scroll down to the additional links section, and there should be a handy link to this agenda, and from which you can click on links and stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description. If you're watching this on Facebook, it's in the pinned comment. And if you're watching this on Twitch, you poor folks on Twitch don't have like a thing where I can put links, so I'm going to put them in the chat. So here's the agenda in the Twitch chat. And there's also a link not only to the episode guide, I'll put a link to the episode guide in Twitch as well. Episode guide. And then there's a link to a form that lets you rate this episode. And I read all of the feedback that comes in. I really appreciate it, and it'll let me know what things I can do to help improve the stream for you, what things you want to see, etc., etc. Do send your feedback my way. Starting to sound like CGP Grey there. I've probably been watching too much CGP Grey. So what are we working on today? Well, first of all, I just want to do a quick self-check. Am I working? You can hear me. I'm recording. You can hear sounds. Good. I'm going to go back to this bug that we kind of dabbled in a few times in the past. It's the sort of a bug that is based on work that we've been doing for tab warming. And yeah, that's what basically it's making it so that when we show this new tab, we want to preload stuff in the like background whenever the user is idle. So preload the actual new tab stuff. We already do the preloading right now, but we do it after we open a tab. So as soon as you open a tab, then we've done a preload. And I find that there are times whenever you want to open a tab and do things right away, and so having the computer get bogged down with like doing other things, like preloading another new tab that you might not ever see when you're trying to do something in the tab you just opened, isn't super optimal. So the patch allows us to use the idle timer to turn on the idle timer to time when a good time would be to do the preloading. It also uses some of the tab warming stuff to make sure that the layers for that new tab are ready to roll whenever you open the tab. And so, I don't even remember where I am with that patch. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I think I was dealing with a bunch of test failure is where I remember being at. Yeah, I think I was there. Let me take a look. I pushed to try. My latest work got pushed to try. And it's here. F510. Yeah, it's right here. This is the latest stuff. And there are a bunch of test failures still. And this is just on OS X. I didn't test on anything else. And I'd like to figure out what these test failures are all about. So the first thing I'm going to do is check out the patch. And actually, another thing I want to do is, because a lot of these test failures have to do with focus, I think I might want to use beast mode and RR. Beast mode is my Linux VM, and RR is a tool that allows me to record and replay debug build runs, and I mean, it'll allow me to record and replay opt build runs as well, but it allows me to debug them after the fact, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Deterministically. Okay, hold up. Just making sure that a lot of these emails I'm receiving are not emergency emails. Not an emergency, not an emergency. Doesn't look like an emergency. Okay. And just messages people are sending me in other channels. Okay. So beast mode, let's see if we can pull down these patches on beast mode as well. So I'm going to open a new terminal, pump up the font a little so you can see it. At the bottom here. Okay, so we're going to sign into beast mode. And what was the last thing that beast mode was doing? It was on 8619. Parent was 8933. Move focus to the right place. 104D is more fiddling. So it's all a little bit out of date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip a lot of these off, these patches, and then I'm going to pull down from try. So I'm going to strip from there to the tip, and then I'm going to pull from try the changes that got pushed. So now if I do glog, I just have that checked out, and now I'm going to pull this. Pull, try that revision. Reginerd says, "Sup, Mike Conley, sorry about your coach getting fired." That's probably a sports joke. I am aware that I share the name of not only a professional basketball player, but his father, Mike Conley Sr., is, I believe, either is or was, Mike Conley Sr., pretty sure a triple jump. Oh, whoops, didn't mean to go there. It looks like I've got a search keyword for Mike. Mike Conley Sr. I look that up here. Yeah, this is Mike Conley Jr. Mike Conley Sr. is an American former track and field athlete who competed primarily in triple jump. He is gold and silver Olympic medalist and world champion in the triple jump. That's Mike Conley Sr. This is Mike Conley Jr. here. I'm Mike Conley, not related. I am not a professional basketball player or Olympian. But if the Mike Conley Jr.'s coach got fired, yeah, I guess it's pretty bad. Unless he deserved it, like maybe he did something wrong. I have no idea. All right, so I'm gonna check out tip on beast mode. The stuff we just pulled down. I've got uncommitted changes. I wonder what they are. Oh, don't care. Can revert those because those are for stuff that I've already fixed. For things I've already fixed. And now I'm going to build. Yeah. So while that's building, we've got my local build done. Let's see if we can recreate these test failures locally. So I'm failing this accessibility test. Oh, Yeah, this is something that I think I can easily reproduce, and I think we've already had to deal with. This looks like a problem that we were dealing with before, and it's just kind of recurred. Let's see if we can get the test failure to occur, and then I will explain. Do 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 do.
What happened? Hey, what happened?
Come on now. Hey, that passed. That's not what I expected. So what if I run until failure? Maybe it's just super racy. There you go. So yeah, I know where the issue is. So every time one of those tests run, it's using sort of some shared code inside this function called shared head. All of those tests run this function called add accessible task, which does a bunch of like common setup for each test. And one of the things it does is after it opens a new tab, it tries to focus the browser that gets opened for a new tab. And I think what I was finding was that I'm trying to remember how this worked. Like we can make this pass certainly if services.focus.focused element is the browser, then we don't need to do this stuff. So I'll actually not equals this. This should make the test pass all the time. Like if I run this, this should run a bunch and then it should just pass all the time. I'm pretty sure. That's my hypothesis. Looking good. Looking good. Yeah, that passed all the time. So but this is not the fix I want to use, but it does help confirm my suspicions, which is that for some reason, attempting to promise focusing the browser is we're just waiting around forever. And the last time we had to deal with this, I don't know if I streamed this sort of exploration, but I went way deep into this function promise focused. Which uses this thing called wait for focus, which does a bunch of messaging and all of this business to determine whether or not a thing is focused and makes something focus when it should. And it was very confusing. Oh, our beast mode build is done. So this might be easier to explore if we're able to use RR and beast mode. So I'm gonna try running that exact same test. Whoopsie daisy. This command here. Run that thing. And we're going to see if it also hangs at the same point. And I'll use VNC to look at this remote machine's playback. Come on, what are we doing here? Okay, that one passed. That one also passed. Now, part of the reason this might all be passing is because these are debug builds. This is a debug build, which means that it's easier for me to debug when I'm using RR, but it also means that it might change the characteristics in terms of speed of how the browser is operating, which means that something that's intermittent, like this test failure, it might be far less likely for it to occur. Less likely to the point where it just never occurs. Because, oh no. No, I got a feeling this is never gonna occur. And we're gonna have to work on my Mac here. Alternatively, another thing we could do, instead of trying to use RR here to solve this problem, we can try and do an opt build on Linux. I mean, the reason why I'd prefer to do it in my VM is because this is a bug that has to do with focus. Like if we look at the code again, this is a bug that has to do with focus, where the user's focus is. And focus is something that if I'm debugging, I might need to like open a debugger or something, or shift focus to the debugger, and that can influence if the thing I'm attached to, if I'm attached to something and using a tool on that same machine, in order to debug the focus issue, I might have to switch focus, and that can dirty the results. So if I can reproduce this in my virtual machine and then debug it in my host machine connected to my virtual machine, I think that's strictly better. So what I'm going to try next is build a non yeah, I think I want to do this. Make build, mock build. So this is an opt build, which means that whenever if I attach a debugger, it's possible that certain things will have been optimized such that it's a little trickier for me to debug it. But you know, we'll get as far as we can. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to build, let's see if we can sort out what's happening here. What I think is happening is that the browser, what I know is happening is that the browser is focused. Services.focus.focused element equals browser dump. Browser is already focused. I'm going to say like dump opening tab that you care about, and then over here we have this thing called adjust focus after tab switch, which is probably doing the work of actually focusing. And what I'm going to do there is I'm going to say dump setting focus on browser, and then I'm going to do a stack, dump a stack, and then I'm also going to turn tab switch logging on. So now if I do in my local build on my local machine here, mock build faster, I'm going to get a bunch of logging output, which may or may not be really hard to read, but we'll see. Now the test is always passing. Wonder why that is. Maybe me trying to write was having changing things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this test with chaos mode instead. So we have this thing called Moz chaos mode, which I believe helps change the thread priorities at random to make it more likely to catch out some of these intermittent things. It'll change orders of things. I think it's Moz chaos mode. Browser is already focused. So instead of Moz Chaos Mode, let me try another tool called Moz Mock Test Verify. Mock Moki Test Verify, which is going to run this test through a pretty brutal regime of test configurations to see if we can get, aha, there it is. Okay. So I'm going to stop there. Here's our test output, our logging output. So we start the test, opening the tab that you care about. The first tab is blank, and then the next tab that we're opening is blank too. Request tab 1. Switch to tab 1. Why doesn't this go into the loading state though? This should be loading, but it's never loading. But then we set focus on the browser, even though it's blank. That's weird. We in update display, we set focus at 4681. Which is here. And then we removed the blank attribute. So the blankness went away. And so getting rid of the blankness allowed us to focus it. Aha, and it's like while we were waiting for these layers to come up from 0, that's why we were like waiting. Okay. And here's where we should have. Okay, so I think the problem is here. If the blank tab is the show tab, we should only adjust the focus to the tab that we're showing if show tab is the one. Here, I'm gonna say this dot log state show tab is this dot t info show tab. Maybe that'll help. There we go. So show tab is 1. Yeah, this one. But then we focus up here, I'll bet. Yeah, we focus here. Setting focus on browser. start. Wait, when do we set focus? We never did. Opening tab 1. Meanwhile, 0 is visible, loading, requested, and blank. And we want to switch to this tab. And then as soon as this layer finally comes up, then we start loading this other one. We show the tab, but we never adjust focus. What? Why not? Adjust focus after tab switch. Tab switch called active element is new tab. Yeah, basically instrument all the things that could possibly be hurting us here, or causing us to bail out. GURL bar is focused, so bailing. Dump focusing URL bar. Dump focusing find field. Dump active element isn't the document element. Browser is blank. Okay. I think it'll help if I drop the font size down just a titch. That might help me visualize it a bit more. Okay, so we got our lock up here. Browser's already focused. When did that happen? Browser 1 is already focused. Here? Yeah, when we remove the blankness from 1, even though it's not the loading one. So maybe I need to adjust, what was it? Blank tab equals null here. And list out loading tab. Let's see what happens there. That worked out. This is pretty compelling. Go on. So far, no failures. And I'm using the verify mode, which is like, it's using chaos mode and it's using like new browser sessions, and it's basically trying to use all of the techniques we know about to try and reproduce intermittent failures as best we can. Hey, we passed. Okay, so that's interesting. Is this the best way of doing this though? If we're not should be blank and this is a blank tab. I wonder if that might just do it. I can't think of another way of doing it right now. This whole blankness thing is kind of a pain in the butt, but this might actually fix things. In which case, sorry, that's beast mode. In which case, we should now push to try again and see what has changed in terms of behavior. So we can undo those changes. And we can also undo, so I'm going to use HG commit interactive to only choose the things I want to keep, and that's mostly not everything. I think that's like, we're going to turn off most things. I don't want to keep most of this because most of it's logging. And instead, I want to use, I just want to turn this on. Whoops, no, this. Just that. That's the only change I want. When setting focus, when blankness removed, ensure that shown tab is loading tab. Something like that. I'll clear that all up in a better commit message down the road. Excuse me. Holy smokes. And I'm going to revert all the other logging changes. I don't need them anymore. And instead, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push to try. And I'm just going to do Mac OS again. Just going to start there. Let's see what happens. So we're going to let that cook. And then who knows, maybe we'll even have results by the end of the episode. We'll check in. We'll check in by the end of the episode. Whoops. Didn't mean to open that up. So maybe I should write some of this down. So one of the things I was just dealing with was focus and how we need to ensure that we adjust focus properly on tabs that we're switching to. We only want to focus the browser area if it's both loaded and visible. Maybe that'd be a good thing to put in here, actually, is an assertion. Is there a state? Requested tab state. Requested tab. Show tab is the blank tab. We shouldn't be blank anymore. Yeah, it should be like this dot get tab state show tab equals this dot state loaded. Let me do that. That might be better. And what I'll do is run this again, but I'll use, yeah, verify. Oh, wait, I should build. Yeah, I think I feel better about checking that it's loaded. So far, so good. This is all quite compelling. All right, I think I've seen enough. I feel pretty good about this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quit, and I'm going to commit amend, or hg amend really. I don't need to change the commit message, so hg amend will be enough. I'm actually going to cancel these jobs. Push this to try again. So these jobs should show up as canceled in a sec. They'll turn pink when they get canceled. Yeah, there you go. Canceled. And we'll wait on that information. Okay, so I can finish writing this. We don't want to focus the browser area if it's both loaded and visible. Oh, that's it. Otherwise, we end up focusing a thing that's not visible, and that greatly confuses things. Specifically, it makes it so that The parent thinks that it makes it so that the content thinks that the window is already focused. The content area window is already focused, and causes, but doesn't set the focused element on it or something. I don't actually remember. Something like those. Something like that. That's enough to give me a start anyways, if I were to reinvestigate that. Okay, so that's baking. What do I want to do next? Well, there was this bug I picked up that I'm just going to investigate. I figure I've got like 20 to 40 minutes left in the stream, maybe 50 minutes. And this is a bug to change some code in form history to use, migration and DB creation should be off of the main thread. So actually this bug is a meta bug. This is more like a meta bug. And then this should be QFP1. So essentially all of the work under DB init and form history still occurs synchronously on the main thread. We should get rid of that if possible. We should just use open async database and then fix the consumer to be async. Migration schema may be funny to handle, though task.jsm may help handling errors. The even better alternative may be to switch to sqlite.jsm, though that may require slightly more refactoring. And then there's just a little bit of work here. And so maybe we can do this. So form history.jsm, let's take a look at it. Used to store values that have been entered into forms which may later be used to automatically fill in the values when the form is visited again. And I believe all of this has been made asynchronous already. All of the querying is asynchronous. They have callbacks. So there are only a couple of synchronous operations, I think. Let's see if we can find them. Make this a bit bigger. Here's the schema. These create async statements. I don't know what db create async statement does though. Oh. Creates a statement, wraps it, then does parameter replacement. So see if we can get a statement. We create an async statement, so we cache them for specific queries. Create async statement, and then there might be some binding, some variable binding. And then that's it, and we return that statement. So a bunch of these are just like async statements for updating the database, selects, inserts, updates, deletes, and then this just generates a GUID. This is synchronous right here. When the first time we get the DB connection, we'll access the file system here. And then, yeah, we open the database and we init the database, and that all occurs synchronously on the main thread. statements, and then create async statement. Is that something that SQLite.jsm does it? Execute cached. Maybe we should read up on SQLite.jsm or SQLite.jsm. Search the internet. Promise-based wrapper around storage SQLite offers some compelling advantages. Automatic statement management. SQLite will create, manage, and destroy statement instances. You don't have to worry about caching created statement instances, destroying them when they're done. This translates to fewer lines of code to talk to SQLite. That's good. All operations are async. All of the functionality in SQLite is asynchronous. Easier memory management. It manages statements. You can perform intelligent actions like purging all cache statements not in use, freeing memory in the process. There's even a shrink memory API that will minimize memory usage of the connection automatically. It exposes a transaction API built on top of task.jsm that allows transactions to be written as procedural JavaScript functions. Okay. Function throws the transactions automatically roll back. Makes code easy to write and read. The complexities of XP.com are hidden. This is all sounds pretty good. And how do you open a connection? Clone. Discard cache statements. Get schema version. Set schema version. Table exists. Index exists. Execute cached. Cached and non-cached. Other than that, they behave identically. These functions receive following arguments. Okay, SQL params on a function is called when a row has been received. Return value is a promise that is resolved in the statement's finished execution. When a statement is executed via execute cache, the prepared statement object is cached inside the open connection. Next time the same SQL statement is executed, the SQL argument is the old statement object is reused. The execute the underlying statement object is thrown away as soon as the statement finishes execution. Execute cache is recommended for statements that may be executed many times. Can be bound to the statement by defining the params argument. So this is all good. We can maybe well, here's how you open a connection, and then you await and execute. Bound parameters right there. Execute transaction. Interesting. Does this thing use transactions? Yeah, it does. It does indeed. Oh, just to upgrade the database, I think. Okay. So let's build up a list of things. If we want to work on this, if this is a thing that sounds interesting, and I bring it up because this is what's called a quantum flow P1. So this is main thread IO. No one's working on it. I thought it might be interesting to look at today. I know there are other things we could look at, other bugs that we've abandoned in the past, but I thought this sounded kind of neat because no one's looking at it. And it's quantum flow, so it's performance stuff. I want to create a list of things that are synchronous in here. Synchronous DB operations in this file. Basically any of the, well, these are async statements. They're all creating async statements. The way it works is make query predicates, search data. From Moss form history. Where? Interesting. So like db init is definitely db init. That's definitely synchronous. db create. db migrate. Pretty sure that's synchronous. Migrators, migrate. This does something. No need to execute statement. If it compiled, we're good. Are expected columns present? Interesting. db cleanup is synchronous. We're doing like main thread IO right there. db close. Basically all of the like management of the database appears to be on the main thread. And then we take the db connection anytime we work with it, we execute async. And then count. Search, count, update, get autocomplete. All of these are async. Schema version. Okay, and shut down, that is main thread IO. Okay. Well, I don't know how easy it is to move all of this, like to migrate this stuff over to SQLite.jsm. I don't think you can do it like a little bit by little bit. Okay, it's a whole hog or nothing. Maybe the first thing we should do, like db connection, is it used all over the place? db connection, db create async statement. Yeah, as soon as the first thing, like db create async statement, I don't know what's the first thing that usually calls into db connection. How does SQLite.jsm's open work? Open connection. Path, shared memory cache. So I don't know what the first thing that calls into DB connection is. It's like this lazy thing that as soon as one of these functions calls DB connection, we do main thread IO. Make query predicates. So one thing you could do, because all of these things are wrapping something called, or they're all calling into something called DB create async statement. That's a pretty good choke point. Like you could have DB create async statement, instead of creating an actual statement, it will take the DB with the query and the params and the binding array. Like I need to figure out what this is. And the binding arrays. I kind of need to understand these. But then instead of using all of this API to like create async statement stuff, we can return a promise. Instead of a statement, have it return a promise. The problem is that that's not great, because these create statements are used to like be these static things that you then execute. They compile down to like the SQLite, the valid SQLite, and then we execute them. It's not like when you call this that you expect to then expect it to return some value. It's just, so like maybe this is where we need to modify things. In the things that use things like make count statement, like maybe we should be migrating this to, instead of being using make count statement, make it use the database, and then instead of using execute async, it will like handle result. Handle error. And how does this work? You like execute. Buffer for the caller is notified state of completion. For this is not relevant. However, for select statements on row, to avoid excessive memory usage, be an array of storage row. And handle completion. Handle completion. Reason. Finished. completion. If it's reason finished, then it's here, otherwise it's here. Okay. Search data, validate search data, and then you make a count statement. Validate search data. How does that work? We'll throw an exception. Unrecognized field. Okay, that's fine. And data type is count. Field and data. And field is field. Search filters includes field. A data type's never even used here. Oh, there it is. Count query. Okay. Count. And then we make a count statement from the search data. And we make query predicates. So let's see, what's passed to form history count sometimes? Form history count, a lot of the time it looks like nothing. Sometimes it's field name, test field. Field name, name A. Luckily there's like a bunch of unit tests. That's really nice. Query predicates. Search data, and then we create this async statement, and then after we have this count statement, we set up the handlers, and then we execute with these handlers. And if there are callbacks, count, and then callbacks. Callbacks is an object. Some kind of listener here. Okay. I understand. So what one could do is continue to validate the search data, but then here it's like DB connection dot execute cached. You need the query. You need to like construct a query instead. Maybe that's what we should do. Instead of make count statement, should we make count query? We execute the query with the args or something. Execute cached. And then on row. Occurred. Like then row called. And then you could do catch error. You could do something like this, like if not on row called, then call error function. So here you do like on row, you do handle result, a callbacks, handle result, row, get result by name, num entries, like that. Assuming like if a callbacks and a callbacks handle result. And you do that. This is all just I'm just like playing around here. Row. not on row called, then like if a callbacks and backs dot like handle, what was it, handle error, and you could do like a callbacks dot handle error. Oh, no, you'd want to do like handle completion, because we're finished now. Completion, handle completion 1. Things went wrong. Otherwise, else a callbacks dot handle completion 0, which is brutal. Brutal. What are these magic numbers? And then if we have an error, then we can do a callbacks dot handle error a error, and then a callbacks dot handle completion 1 because something went wrong. Could do that. So one thing that jumps out at me right away is this is like really clumsy, where these callback things that are passed, they may or may not have things like handle completion, handle error, handle result. So what would be nice maybe is to have like a function that takes in the callbacks, and for the functions that aren't defined, we like, if callbacks is null, we'll return back an object with these like those 3 functions defined, they're all no ops. And if any of them are not defined, then we'll just like overwrite the blank, the undefined properties with no ops, so that we don't have to do all of this. We can just do that. And it just becomes a lot simpler. That's what I think we should approach this with. So things to do, approach ideas. How would one approach this? One, I'd say we could start by creating a sqlite.jsm connection in parallel. Can you do that? And then migrate piecemeal? That might be an interesting way of doing this. Let me ask Mac if we can do that. Maybe we can find an example of that happening. Services storage open unshared database. Unshared database, what does that mean? Open connection to a specified file that doesn't share an SQLite cache. Without a shared cache, each connection uses its own pages cache, which may be memory inefficient with a large number of connections. On the other side, if cache contention may be an issue, for example, concurrency is important to ensure responsiveness. Using unshared connections may be a performance win. If you have more than one connection to a file, you must use the exact same name for the file each time, including case. Code uses a simple string compare to see if there's already a connection. Opening a connection to food SQLite and food SQLite will corrupt your database. So it sounds like you can create 2 connections. So maybe that's how I'd approach this. Connection in parallel. We might need to switch from services.storage.open.unshared database to services storage.open database in the old school DB connection getter. Excuse me. Migrate one command at a time. One query at a time. Perhaps start with count. Create a utility function that takes in a listener object or null and returns an object that has handle result, handle error, and handle completion defined. If any of those were undefined in the original object that was passed in, overwrite them with no ops. Okay. Okay. And then you want to see if we can do that? Like, let's see if we can just do this, like really sloppily, and then see if we can pass all the tests. Like, so there's already a bunch of tests here. Can we? Let's see here. Unit tests. Test. Autocomplete. Form history. History API. Update, search, count. Okay, this looks like one that like will give me a good test of all of the of a number of the functions. So like if I run that right now, test history API, what happens? It failed. Why? DB connection is undefined. Have I accidentally messed with the source code? Oh, probably. Yeah, I wrote a bunch of like silly pseudocode. I'm gonna undo all that. Yeah, all this stuff needs to be undone. No, it's already been done. Okay, so that passes. So now let's create a, let's see. How does SQLite open connection, like what's a, I want to look, storage, Android. Okay, what we'll do is in form history.jsm, we can create this thing called db db, and what we'll do is if not this dot db, this dot db equals SQLite dot open connection, and it'll do that, and then db returns a promise that resolves to the db, and we'll like return this dot db. So if something, I feel like this is something that's going to get called again and again and again. Once a promise has resolved, like, I feel like I should know this, but like, let x equals new promise resolve, set timeout, resolve 1000 high. So I'm pretty sure what that means is that resolve will get called with x dot then alert s, alert s, right. And if I do that again, yeah, so the x is fulfilled. S. Yeah, so then like you'll get it every time, which is fine. So that's kind of what you want. So always return this dot db. That's kind of what you want to do. And then what you're always going to get a promise. So getting the db returns a promise. Okay. We could also maybe make these async functions, because I don't think it's expected that they return anything. So we could start by like, well, first of all, let's make it so that we can actually open a connection here. Let's import SQLite.jsm. cu.import resource GRE modules SQLite.jsm. And then the open connection takes a path, shared memory cache, and shrink memory on connection idle. I'm going to say that's false for now. So what I can do is like, I'm going to say db const db file name equals that, and then that's all doing this like synchronous stuff. how would it work if we're not doing synchronous stuff? Let's open. Storage adapter connection closing. That's a good idea. Open connection. Who calls Kinto open connection? Login import path this dot path. Login import. SQLite path. Yeah, constants profile dir. This is what you kind of want right there. Profile dir. Sign on set SQLite. Yeah. Okay, so get DB. Let path equal that, and then profile dir DB file name. And then that can all be one line. And do we need OS file here? Probably, yeah. Lazy module getter. What else? I think most people just call it OS. OS path join, OS constants path profile there, and then DB file name. Then we open the connection to the path. And what else? Path. Open connection. Right. And then we can get the schema version. Or maybe this should be an async function. dbcon. We open the connection and then like migrate if necessary. Now what if we re-enter this? That is an issue. If you re-enter. You almost want dbcon to return a promise that resolves with the connection as soon as the connection's been opened and as soon as the migration's all done and everything's ready to roll. And if for some reason we re-enter dbcon, you get the same promise back. So you only get this if we've completed. Yeah. Oh, we reject. Okay, I think I'm going to end the episode here. I'm going to write that down, though. Make it so that db getter function is async and ensures that the DB connection is open and the DB is properly migrated before returning the DB connection. Calls to the getter in the meantime should return the same promise. The promise should only resolve once the DB connection is opened and migrated, fully migrated. Okay. I think that's all I want to do for now. Thank you so much for watching episode 122, I think, of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. Oh, before we go, let's see what... Oh, okay, well, no news on our build. We're still queued, so I guess we'll find out soon. Although ESLint hates it, for reasons that are beyond my control, it seems. Anywho, thanks so much for watching The Joy of Coding. I hope you're enjoying yourself and that this was an okay stream. And let me know, if you've got some time back in the agenda. There is a link, again, to rate the episode. I'm going to drop that link again into the Twitch chat. Let me know what you thought. Ba-bwam. Oh, hey, Bov Durseg Fedge. You just joined as I was about to finish. You can watch the recording once I finish uploading it, and you can see what was going on. But in the meantime, there's a form for letting me know what you thought of the stream. And thanks again for watching, and I will see you next week. It'll be December. We're starting to approach the holidays, so there's going to be, at some point, some stoppage in episodes while holidays happen, and then I'll be back in the new year. But I will let you know once I know what all that means. So that's it. Have yourself a great week. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. The joy of coding. See ya.